Well, I would have to agree with Einstein's assessment that Western culture in many ways has lost its connection with intuition, but more so with the spirit of nature, with the spirit of being connected with each other. I think when we look around now, we see that we have become even more isolated in our thinkingness, in our rational mind approach to things, so much so that we have neglected our planet, neglected our environment. And I think when we do that, what I'm finding is that we create disease, we create states of, unhealthy environments, both physically and also for the planet. In the workshop and in the book, I try to show people how the heart is the interface between what I call universal intelligence and individual intelligence. And when I say universal intelligence, I'm talking about what happens when you think about a friend and moments later the phone rings and it's your friend. Or you dream about someone one evening or one night and you wake up and that friend calls you, or you get an email from them and they explain some of the things that were happening in your dream or were actually happening to them. So this interconnectedness, this universal knowing is all around us. And that is the thing that I try to help people get in touch with that in the workshop. I think it's by music. I look at music, it's a vibration. It's varying rates of vibration that are the different notes that we distinguish. A vibration is the same as frequency. It's essentially a number. Each note has a different number. When I look at the body as being frequencies, when I look at the different organs, like the large intestine has a different frequency than the small intestines. In ancient times, this whole concept was very well known. I think in ancient times people were very connected with the spirit of nature. Pythagoras referred to it as the music of the spheres. It's interesting now how researchers are catching up to this ancient wisdom. For example, if you look at the heart beating at 72 cycles per second, and again, take a harmonic of that, you find that at 7.2 cycles per second, you get the theta brain waves. And researchers are finding that when we are in a theta brainwave state, which is tied directly to the heart, that is a more intuitive, it's a more calm, it's a state where you gain a lot of intuition, and it just brings us into that frequency of nature. Now 7.2 is in the neighborhood of Schumann waves, which are 7.8 cycles per second. Again, those are all within the averages that are connected to the heart. And Schumann waves, for those that don't know, is a way of looking at the vibration of the planet. Our Earth is surrounded by that frequency. Researchers at the Institute of Heart Math have done some very interesting studies, and I'd like to share one of those if I could. I find this very fascinating. They took, I don't know how many subjects, but they would wire up their brains and their hearts to electrical monitors. And then the subject would be shown a series of photographs on a computer monitor. And when a very unpleasant image would come up on the screen, the heart would naturally react very erratically. It would change the brain rhythm, and it would change the frequencies of the heart. And then when a very pleasant picture would come up, a picture of nature, let's say, the heart rate would calm down, the brain rhythms would go back into sync with the heart. And what they discovered was that during that black period when you're transitioning from one image to another, they would start to get a recording on the monitors that would correspond to the picture coming up next. So you haven't seen the picture, but the heart was already starting to have a reaction to the picture. And then, let's say, would have a very chaotic reaction, and then a very negative picture would come up. A very calming reaction, then they would have a very calming, beautiful picture would come up. And from that, we're finding that the heart was reacting to something that the brain did not know. In fact, the brain was getting the information after the heart. So the heart knows best, and the heart is knowing before the mind catches up to what's going on. And we do this by learning other ways of being. to have a shift in consciousness means that we have to, I believe, get more in touch with our heart's intuition. For example, when we talk about this, it really, for me, it's like when someone says something unpleasant to us and it hurts our feelings. I think what we immediately do is we use our brain consciousness to go through our library cards, I call them, of how to respond. And we learn these responses from our parents, from our upbringing, from childhood. And usually what happens is the brain will go through these library cards, pick one almost at random, and then use that as a way of reacting to the situation. And so usually what happens is we pick a response and we blurt something out, and we just generally make the problem or the situation worse. What I'm teaching is a couple things. The first is to go back into the heart and ask the heart, how should we respond? And when you do that, you find that because the heart already knows, the heart is already connected to where the other person is coming from. And so when you're connected to where the other person is coming from, then you respond in a compassionate and loving way. And that always changes the whole dynamic. Well, the brain actually is more of a tool, as Einstein said, for the heart. The brain is, in fact, hardwired for pleasure. Candace Pert in the 90s showed us that the brain contains millions of these opiate receptor sites. So Candace Pert was the one who wrote the book Molecules of Emotion.
Yes.
And she showed us that our body is filled with hundreds of, each cell has millions of these receptor sites. And so every cell is vibrating and communicating with each other, all these emotions. And at that time she had mapped out over 300 of these different emotional molecules. The heart actually contains all of the receptor sites. So when we say the heart knows, the heart is like a mini brain. It has all the information coming from all the different cells. And what I think is happening is that the mind-brain really is hooked on pleasure. And so when we have an unpleasant emotion, we generally, the brain wants to repress that. It usually doesn't want to acknowledge that is happening. So you see that in the dynamics between men and women all the time, where the woman wants to digest and process her emotions, and the man is more likely than not to not want to go there.
Mm-hmm. I also find that some people just had an experience and they have a hard time about letting go of that experience. They keep talking about the situation, like waiting for brain to help them integrate, but they can't. So they are stuck in what I call a pattern. And I mean, certainly I have millions of them, and they keep surfacing like a layer of an onion. And I have found that when I have the opportunity to work using the process of the Scalar Heart Connection, I have the ability to identify those feelings and emotions that have me trapped in old patterns, so I can move forward and really, helping my conscious mind integrate and come to terms with the underlying emotional conflict that I learned at one point, and I was able to resolve it. So I'm really thrilled about this tool, and what other people have experienced with this, or what brings you to share this with everybody in the world as a wonderful tool.
It goes back to the idea that when we repress our emotions, that the cells are still communicating with each other. The cells are very aware of the emotion, and the cells want to integrate it. They want to be recognized. They want to be able to extract the essence of their experiences. And as long as brain conscious doesn't allow for that connection, then we have a problem. We have a disconnect. And the cells in our body will continue to find ways to bring these subconscious feelings to consciousness, one way or the other. So it's either going to come out through a disease state, a discomfort, or it can come out in pain. It can come out in dreams. That's a very fascinating field, where the cells can actually bring images to the subconscious mind when the mind is asleep. So Scalar Heart Connection is a way of helping people to get in touch with that subconscious material, if they're willing to go beyond what the rational brain is thinking and listen to the messages of the heart, that is a fascinating conversation, and it always brings relief. It always brings a certain aha moment to the person's experience.